When it comes to the legendary series Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto, you will not find a bigger proponent of it than me. As far as the big three shows go, I've been writing what if Naruto stories for 6 years now. But today, the pen will be in someone else, or, well, something else's hands. That's right. Welcome to today's story, which is, what if AI wrote Naruto? It's a pretty interesting video, and I haven't seen anyone do this yet, but I've been playing around with some of the pro tools of Gemini and ChatGPT for a couple years now, and I'm really interested in seeing what it spits out for us. But that's enough yapping. If you enjoyed this and want to see more videos from me, make sure to slap all those cool buttons down there. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get started! But before we get into the fun part, I have to explain the ethical concerns of this and why I don't encourage using generative AI to write scripts for any potential What If Naruto creators out there. AI is stealing. The datasets that are being used by companies like OpenAI and Google are not all open source and have copyright from innocent creators and writers. Heck, even Masashi Kishimoto isn't exactly considering that his work might be getting used by these AI to train these models. So, in a way, what I'm doing today is kinda unethical. So, just to reiterate, I am actually not encouraging this be used, and I write all of my videos and my stories from scratch, so please pay and respect authors and creators. Anyway, with that being said, let's get into the experiment. I already asked it, can you write a story for me? I'll provide context, and I want you to generate this story as an audiobook to create images and scenery, basically like how it would be made if I was writing a script to tell Naruto. So yes, Gemini believes it's capable of doing this, so how should we get started? If I were to describe Naruto, I think this is how I'd go about it. Okay, with some fast forwarding, we should be all done, so I'll do a quick read through of what's going on here. I want you to write a story about a 12-year-old main protagonist. The character is a ninja who has had difficulty completing the final exam of the school he attends to become a ninja. The story should begin with him pranking his instructors by defacing a monument, honoring the strongest ninjas from his home village. One of his teachers catches and scolds him, with the graduation exam being held that night, and him failing the exam. Another instructor uses the boy for his own ends, telling him that by sneaking into the most powerful ninja's office in the hidden village, he can steal a scroll of powerful ninja techniques called Jutsu. By successfully stealing the scroll, he should be able to graduate according to this instructor. The boy should steal the scroll and read it while waiting to meet up with the new instructor, learning a powerful ninja ability. I'm letting it choose this ability. And while he is waiting for the instructor, the strongest tiled ninja would send elite ninja to search for the scroll and the boy. The first instructor finds the boy first, explaining his hatred and bias against the boy was due to the attack of a powerful animal spirit that he held against the boy. The instructor who finds the boy is attacked by another instructor, and then the first instructor who actually cares about the boy and forgives him is saved by the boy and his new technique. The instructor gives his ninja headband to the boy and lets him graduate. Please write this. So this kind of is like, as you can tell, a summary of the first mini arc of Naruto where he graduates the academy. And I'm not telling any details about names or anything. So in fact, I'll add, please write this. Feel free to create names for the characters. Let's see how this goes. The pre-dawn era of Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves, was cool and still, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. But the tranquility was about to be shattered by a splash of vibrant, irreverent color. 12-year-old Kenzo, a wiry boy with a shock of spiky black hair that defied gravity and eyes that sparkled with mischief, grinned as he applied the finishing touches of bright orange paint to the stone face of the first Hokage on the Monument of Heroes. The stern, carved visage now sported a comical spiraling mustache and oversized googly eyes, okay? Perfect, Kenzo whispered, stepping back to admire his handiwork, a paint can swinging jauntily from his fingers. He imagined the sputtering outrage of the village elders, the exasperated sighs of his instructors at the ninja academy. It was a small act of rebellion, a way to vent his frustration. Tonight was the graduation exam, his third attempt, which we did not even say by the way, and the knot of anxiety in his stomach was already tightening. A sharp cough cut through the morning quiet. Kenzo froze, paint can clattering to the ground. It was Master Hiroshi, his most formidable and critical instructor, standing at the edge of the clearing, his arms crossed, his expression as stony as the defaced monument. Hiroshi was a man carved from granite himself, a perpetually furrowed brow and eyes that seemed to see right through Kenzo's every prank and excuse. Kenzo! Hiroshi's voice was low and dangerous, like the rumble of distant thunder.
Defacing the legacy of our village founders. Is this how you prepare for the most important night of your young life?
Kenzo's ears burned. It was just a bit of fun, Master Hiroshi.
Fun?
Hiroshi stepped closer, his shadow falling over Kenzo.
The path of a ninja is one of discipline, respect, and unwavering commitment, qualities you seem determined to avoid. The graduation exam is tonight. Perhaps you should spend your remaining hours contemplating the seriousness of that instead of this.
He gestured dismissively at the painted monument. Kenzo would mumble an apology, his earlier bravado deflating like a punctured balloon. He spent the rest of the day in a miserable haze of scrubbing paint under Hiroshi's watchful eye, the instructor's earlier words echoing in his mind. That night, the exam was a disaster. Kenzo, flustered and self-conscious, fumbled all of his hand signs during the ninjutsu demonstration. His shuriken throws went wide, and he was easily bested in the sparring match. The verdict was inevitable. Failure again. Dejected, Kenzo slumped on a training post outside the academy, the sounds of celebration from the successful graduates grating on his ears.
Rough night, eh, Kenzo?
Kenzo looked up. It was Master Kaito, another of his instructors, leaning against a nearby tree. Kaito was the opposite of Hiroshi, younger, with an easy smile and a more relaxed demeanor. He'd always been more lenient with Kenzo, sometimes even turning a blind eye to his minor infractions.
You could say that, Kenzo sighed. I guess I'm just not cut out to be a ninja.
Kaito pushed himself off the tree and sat beside Kenzo. Don't say that. You have spirit, Kenzo. More than many of those who passed tonight. You just need the right opportunity. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. I know a way you could still graduate. A way to prove you have what it takes. Kenzo's head would snap up.
How?
The Kage, Lord Akio, keeps a scroll in his office, Kaito said, his eyes glinting. The Scroll of Forbidden Jutsu. It contains techniques of immense power. If you could retrieve that scroll and bring it to me, I could make a case for you, arguing that such initiative and skill would warrant you being graduated. Kenzo's heart would hammer.
Steal from the Kage? The most powerful ninja in the village?
It was insane, but the desperation to pass, to shed the label of being a failure, was a potent lure.
But isn't that incredibly dangerous and wrong?
This guy has more of a moral values than the original Naruto. That's crazy. Kaito clapped him on the shoulder. The path to strength is often unconventional, Kenzo. Think of it as a unofficial final exam. Succeed and you're a ninja. Meet me at the old shrine by the Whispering Falls in 1 hour. Okay, Whispering Falls. Driven by a reckless hope, Kenzo agreed. Under the cloak of a moonless night, he moved through the village like a shadow, his smaller size an advantage as he slipped past the patrols. The Kage's residence was imposing, but Kenzo had spent years exploring every nook and cranny of the village. He found a loose window grate at the back, just as Kaito had hinted. Inside, the Kage's office was dark and silent, filled with the scent of old parchment and polished wood. His heart pounded against his ribs as he located the scroll, large, bound in dark leather, and radiating a faint, almost imperceptible energy. With trembling hands, he snatched it and slipped back out into the night. He didn't go straight to the Whispering Falls. Curiosity and a desperate need to feel some measure of control gnawed at him. Finding a secluded copse of trees, Kenzo carefully unrolled the ancient parchment, the symbols complex and arcane, but one jutsu caught his eye. The diagrams were surprisingly straightforward. The Shadow Clone Jutsu, attempting to create solid physical duplicates of oneself. It was exactly the kind of flashy, powerful jutsu he'd always dreamed of mastering. He pored over the instructions, his earlier anxieties momentarily forgotten as he focused. Tracing the hand signs in the air, he practiced the sequence. Ram, serpent, tiger. A surge of chakra and a puff of smoke, and then nothing. He tried again and again, but his frustration mounted. Then on the fifth try, with a more forceful expulsion of his chakra and a clearer mental image, there was a loud poof, and standing before him, looking as just surprised as he felt, was another Kenzo. It was wobbly and flickering slightly, but it was real. A grin spread across his face. Suddenly, the distinct sound of kunai slicing through the air and hushed, urgent voices jolted him back to reality.
Spread out! The Kage wants that scroll and the thief found before sunrise.
Elite Anbu Black Ops, their featureless animal-like masks terrifying in the gloom. He'd lingered too long. Panic seized him. He grabbed the scroll and bolted, his newly formed, albeit unstable clones stumbling after him before dissolving into smoke. He had to find Kaito. Quickly. He was halfway to Whispering Falls when a figure landed silently in front of him, blocking his path. It was none other than Master Hiroshi.
Kenzo.
Hiroshi's voice was heavy with disappointment.
I had hoped even you wouldn't stoop this low.
Master Hiroshi, I can explain, Kenzo stammered, clutching the scroll.
Explain what? Betraying the village? Stealing its most sacred secrets?
Hiroshi's gaze softened, a flicker of an emotion Kenzo had never seen there before. Pain.
I was hard on you, Kenzo. Unfairly so. You see, years ago, before you were even born, my younger brother, he was killed during the rampage of the Great Forest Bear Spirit.
The Great Forest Bear Spirit.
It was a senseless tragedy, a force of nature we couldn't stop. When you joined the academy, your wild energy, your disregard for rules, it reminded me of the chaos of that day. I saw the spirit's untamed nature in you, and I held it against you. It was wrong of me.
Kenzo stared, speechless. This stern, unyielding man was bearing a hidden wound. Before Kenzo could respond, a blur of motion erupted from the trees. Master Kaito, his easy smile replaced with a predatory grin, launched an attack, not at Kenzo, but at Hiroshi.
Thank you for finding him for me, Hiroshi. Now, give me the boy and the scroll, and I might let you live to see another sunrise.
Hiroshi parried Kaito's initial strike, a kunai flashing in his hand.
Kaito, you orchestrated this?
He was a means to an end, Kaito sneered, pressing his attack. The boy was never going to graduate, but he was gullible enough to fetch me this. He lunged, and Hiroshi cried out, stumbling back, clutching his arm, where Kaito's blade had found its mark. Seeing Hiroshi injured, something snapped inside Kenzo. The fear, the frustration, the shame, it all coalesced into a surge of protective anger. He remembered the hand signs, the feel of the chakra. Ram, serpent, tiger. Shadow clone jutsu, he yelled, with three distinct poofs. 3 solid Kenzo clones appeared, flanking the original. They weren't perfect, but they were there. Kaito, momentarily stunned by the unexpected technique, faltered. 4 of them? Kaito scoffed, but there was a new note of uncertainty in his voice. Get him! Kenzo Prime shouted, and the 4 Kenzos, a whirlwind of flailing limbs and surprise coordination charged. While Kaito was a superior ninja, the sheer unpredictability and number of clones overwhelmed him. Yes, all 4 clones were too much for poor Kaito-sensei. One clone tackled his legs, another snatched at the scroll as he tried to grab it from the original Kenzo. Meanwhile, Kenzo Prime and the 3rd clone landed a series of clumsy but effective blows. Kaito, disoriented and outmaneuvered by the chaotic assault, was knocked off balance, giving Hiroshi the opening he needed. Despite his injury, Hiroshi moved with swift precision, disarming Kaito and subduing him with a well-placed strike to a pressure point. As Anbu and reinforcements arrived, drawn by the commotion, they arrived to take a bound Kaito away. Kenzo stood panting, his clones dissipating into smoke. He turned, looking at Hiroshi, expecting the worst. But Hiroshi walked over to him, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. A genuine smile, something Kenzo had never witnessed. He reached up and untied his own forehead protector, the metal plate gleaming with the Leaf Village symbol.
Kenzo, Hiroshi said, his voice raspy but firm. Tonight you displayed genuine courage, ingenuity, and the ability to master a high-level jutsu under extreme pressure. More importantly, you protected a comrade, even one who had wronged you. He held up the forehead protector. By the authority vested in me as the instructor of the Hidden Leaf Academy, you graduate. Tears welled in Kenzo's eyes as he took the headband, its cool metal a comforting weight in his hand. He had done it. He was a ninja. I still can't get over the Great Bear Spirit. Oh my gosh. Anyway, let's keep going. I kind of want to get past this at least to Land of Waves. So now we're going to introduce Kenzo, a rival, as well as a team of 3 people with an instructor. The instructor is going to perform some sort of test, and then they'll be formed as a team where they take on low-level missions until Kenzo gets fed up and wants to prove himself, leading to them to have to go on some sort of larger journey. Alright,
So this is the new prompt. Now that we've passed Kenzo's graduation exam. Kenzo is officially a ninja, but now has to be placed on a team with 2 other new ninja and with a sensei/teacher. I want the teacher to have some sort of test that reinforces the teamwork of the team. I also want Kenzo to have a rival on this team and one of the teammates. The sensei will ask Kenzo and the new team members what their goal as ninja. New team members, what their goal as ninja are. After passing this test the sensei puts on the team, they'll perform low-level missions for a while before Kenzo gets fed up and wants to prove himself, leading to a more difficult mission from the Kage that leads to danger. Kenzo should somehow harness the power of the wild spirit bear when his rival is in danger. The details of this mission are up to you, though. The themes of this arc should be finding humanity as ninjas are perceived as tools and what Kenzo's nindo, his ninja way, will become, reinforcing his will to get stronger. Let's see what it comes up with, and then I think I'll probably end it here after our new Land of Waves or whatever this comes up with. So let's see the story after he's graduated with his team being placed in this first mission. I'm really excited to see where the wild spirit bear thing goes too. That was very interesting. Let's see. The dust of Kenzo's unorthodox graduation had barely settled when he found himself standing in a sun-dappled training ground, facing his new reality. Team 7. Their sensei was a woman named Captain Yumi? Is this Black Clover? We got Captain Yumi here? Okay. She was lean and wiry with a cascade of dark hair, usually tied back in a practical knot, and eyes that seemed to miss nothing, often crinkling at the corners of a humor that could turn sharp as a kunai in an instant. She was known for her unconventional methods and for producing capable, if somewhat eccentric, shinobi. To Kenzo's left stood Ren, a boy about his age with sleek dark hair, forming a pale, aristocratic face. His movements were precise, his dark eyes assessing, and he carried himself with an air of quiet superiority. He was from the esteemed Inozuka clan. Is that... No way. Is that Fang over Fang boy? He got a dog too? Though unusually, he didn't yet have a canine partner. I was joking! A fact that seemed to be a point of silent contention for him. He'd already made it clear through a few disdainful glances that he considered Kenzo's boisterous nature and messy past a liability. To his right was Aiko, a girl of soft brown eyes and the hair the color of rich earth, often adorned with small wildflowers. She was quieter than Kenzo, more observant, her gaze often drilling to the subtle movements of leaves or the patterns of insects. Her specialty, Kenzo would soon learn, was her remarkable affinity for nature, allowing her to track, camouflage, and even coax plants to her will with subtle ninjutsu. We've got a wood style user here. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right, introductions are done, Captain Yumi said, her voice brisk. She was perched on a thick tree branch, seemingly at ease, yet radiating an undeniable authority. Before we officially begin our journey as Team 7, I want to know what drives each of you. What is your goal as a ninja of Konoha? You first, Kenzo. Kenzo, still buzzing from his recent graduation, puffed out his chest.
I want to be the strongest ninja ever. So strong that everyone acknowledges me. And strong enough to protect my friends and my village.
He grinned, thinking of Master Hiroshi and the thrill of using his shadow clone jutsu. Ren scoffed softly, a barely audible breath of disdain. When Yumi's gaze turned to him, he straightened. My goal is to master every jutsu I can, to restore the full honor of my clan's name, and become an indispensable asset to the Hokage. His voice was cool and measured. Aiko spoke last, her voice gentle but firm. I want to use my abilities to help people, to understand the world around us better, and to be a ninja the village can rely on, no matter how small the task. Captain Yumi nodded slowly, her eyes lingering on each of them. Interesting ambitions, but ambitions are nothing without the will to achieve them, and more importantly, the ability to work as a unit, which brings us to your first real test. She hopped down from the branch, landing silently in her hand. 2 small silver bells jingled, catching the light. You have until noon to get these bells from me. Those who succeed will pass, and those who fail... She let the implication hang in the air. A slight, almost predatory... What is with the predatory smiles in this? Okay, predatory smile playing on her lips. Well, they'll be sent back to the academy. Oh, and one more thing. There are only 2 bells, so at least one of you is guaranteed to fail if you can't figure this out. Let's begin. With that, she vanished in a swirl of leaves. Kenzo, Ren, and Aiko exchanged uneasy glances, 2 bells and 3 genin? The math was simple and brutal. So it's every ninja for themselves, Ren stated, his eyes already scaling the danced foliage. Don't get in my way, Kenzo. He blurred into motion, disappearing into the undergrowth. Hey, wait up! Kenzo yelled, but Ren was gone. He looked at Aiko. What do we do? Aiko frowned, biting her lip. She said those who succeed will pass, not those who get a bell. And she emphasized working as a unit earlier. Maybe the point isn't just getting a bell. Kenzo, however, was already thinking of his shadow clones. I can make a bunch of me's! We can just overwhelm her! He flashed through the hand signs. Shadow clone jutsu! 3 Kenzos popped into existence. Alright team, let's go get those bells! The 4 Kenzos charged off in different directions, yelling battle cries. Aiko sighed, then began to move more stealthily, her senses attuned to the forest, trying to track Captain Yumi through the subtle disturbances she felt in nature. Damn, Aiko is already a better character than Sakura. That's crazy. Wow, okay, anyway. The morning was a symphony of blunders. Kenzo's clones, while enthusiastic, were easily dispatched by Yumi, who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. He'd find himself ensnared in almost invisible wire traps, or a dummy would be in her place when he pounced. Ren, relying on his superior speed and taijutsu, managed a few close calls, his attacks precise and powerful. But Yumi always seemed one step ahead, deflecting his strikes with infuriating ease and often using his own momentum against him. Aiko, using her tracking skills, managed to locate Yumi several times, but hesitated to engage directly, knowing she couldn't match the Jonin in a frontal assault. Damn, Aiko is low-key becoming my favorite character already, okay. As noon approaches, the 3 genin were bruised, exhausted, and bellless. They found themselves regrouping, not by plan, but by shared failure, near the training ground's central clearing. This is impossible, Kenzo panted, collapsing onto the grass. She's too fast, too smart. Ren, usually so composed, had a smudge of dirt on his cheek, and his breathing was ragged. Her skill is Jonin level, as expected. Attacking her head-on individually is completely futile. Aiko, who had been quietly observing a trail of disturbed leaves, spoke up. Remember what she said? At least one of you is guaranteed to fail if you can't figure this out. And the bells. There are 2, but there are 3 of us. She looked pointedly at Kenzo, then Ren. What if the goal isn't for 1 or 2 of us to get a bell, but for us to prove we can work together to overcome an impossible challenge? Kenzo frowned. So, like, we all attack her at once? More than that, Aiko said. We need a plan. Ren, you're the fastest and the best at taijutsu. Kenzo, your clones can create diversions and overwhelm her, and I can use my knowledge of the terrain and some subtle jutsu to set traps or guide her toward our goal. Ren looked skeptical. Trusting his clones? He said, jerking a thumb at Kenzo. Hey, my clones are awesome, Kenzo retorted. They're clumsy and predictable, Ren shot back. Enough! Aiko stepped between them. We have less than an hour. Do we want to pass or do we want to argue? Reluctantly, they began to formulate a strategy. Kenzo would create multiple clones to flush Yumi out and keep her occupied. Aiko would use her skills to anticipate Yumi's escape routes and subtly guide her toward a prearranged point where Ren, with his superior speed, would attempt to snatch the bells, using the chaos created by Kenzo's clones as cover. It was desperate, and a last-ditch effort. They put their plan to action, Kenzo pushing his chakra to its limits, creating a dozen shadow clones. The effect was immediate. A chaotic swarm of Kenzos descended upon the training ground. Yumi, though initially surprised by the sheer number, moved with fluid grace, disabling clone after clone, but the sheer pressure forced her into a more defensive posture. Aiko, hidden in the canopy, used subtle wind currents and rustling leaves to subtly direct Yumi's evasions, making certain paths seem more appealing, certain areas more dangerous. Finally, as Yumi dodged a pincer attack from 3 Kenzos, she found herself exactly where Aiko had predicted. Ren, exploding from his hiding place, was a blur, his hand shooting out toward the bells. Yumi smiled. In the next instant, Ren was dangling upside down from a tree, caught in a rope snare he hadn't seen. The bells on Yumi's hip jingled mockingly. As all of Kenzo's clones had been poofed out of existence, the 3 genin stood defeated as the training ground bell signaled noon. Captain Yumi walked towards them, the 2 silver bells still secured at her hip. Well, she said, her tone unreadable, that was a performance. Kenzo hung his head. We failed! Ren, cut down by Aiko, scowled in frustration. Did you? Yumi asked. She looked at the bells, then at them. None of you got a bell, so by the initial rules you all fail. You'll be sent back to the academy. Aiko looked crestfallen. Kenzo felt a familiar sting of disappointment. Even Ren looked grim. However, Yumi continued, a small smile playing on her lips. The true purpose of this test was to see if you could look beyond individual ambition and understand the meaning of teamwork. In the world of shinobi, those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum. Wow, that's a great quote there, Captain Yumi. For a brief moment there at the very end, you three started to act like a team. You formulated a plan, coordinated your efforts, however clumsily. She tossed the two bells onto the grass in front of them. In a real mission, there aren't always enough resources to go around. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices, or one person's success is reliant on the others, but you must operate as a unit. She looked at them pointedly. You all pass, but just barely. Team 7 is officially active. Don't make me regret this. Relief washed over Kenzo, so potent it almost buckled his knees. He looked at Ren and Aiko. Ren gave a curt, almost imperceptible nod. Maybe his team thing wouldn't be so bad after all. Their early days as Team 7 were a blur of D-rank missions. They painted fences, weeded the gardens of wealthy merchants, and much to Kenzo's chagrin, spent an entire week chasing Tora, the Fire Daimyo's notoriously elusive cat. This is ridiculous, Kenzo complained one afternoon, covered in mud after trying to retrieve a runaway pig. We're real ninjas. I can make shadow clones. Ren is super fast. Aiko can talk to squirrels probably. Why are we doing chores that any civilian could do? Ren meticulously cleaned his kunai. He sniffed. These missions teach discipline and attention to detail, Kenzo. Qualities you clearly lack. Oh yeah? Well, at least I'm not afraid to get my fancy pants dirty, Kenzo shot back. Aiko sighed, stepping between them as she often did. Captain Yumi said these missions build our teamwork in low-stakes environments. But Kenzo grew increasingly restless. He yearned for a real challenge, a chance to prove himself, to use the skills he fought so hard to acquire. Finally, after a particularly humiliating mission involving retrieving stolen laundry, he snapped. He marched straight to the Kage's tower, bypassing Captain Yumi. Lord Akio, the third Kage, was an older man with kind eyes that held a deep wisdom, but also the weariness of leadership. He listened patiently as Kenzo, practically vibrating with pent-up energy, pleaded for a more significant mission. Master Hiroshi, who now served as one of the Kage's advisors, stood beside him, a faint smile on his face as he watched his former student. You show spirit, Kenzo, Lord Akio said, when Kenzo had finished his impassioned plea. And your sensei reports that while unconventional, your team is slowly learning to function. He exchanged a look with Hiroshi. Very well. There is a C-rank mission, potentially bordering on a B-rank. A small caravan of artisans requires an escort through the Koroi Woods to the border of the Land of Rivers. There have been reports of increased bandit activity in that region. It will require stealth, vigilance, and above all, teamwork. Do you believe Team 7 is ready for such a task? Kenzo's eyes lit up. Yes, Lord Hokage, we are! Thank you! The Koroi Woods were aptly named. Ancient trees of dark, gnarled branches formed a dense canopy that sunlight struggled to penetrate. The air was heavy, damp, and unnervingly silent. Team 7, led by Captain Yumi, flanked the small, nervous group of artisans. Kenzo was on high alert, his senses straining, eager to prove himself. Ren was a picture of focused intensity, his movements economical and sharp. Aiko moved with a quiet grace, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings, her fingers occasionally brushing against the bark of trees, as if listening to their secrets. For 2 days, the journey was uneventful. Kenzo started to think his desire for action had been premature. Then, as they navigated a narrow pass, the ambush struck. A hail of shuriken erupted from the dense foliage, followed by a dozen rough-looking bandits armed with swords and axes, their faces contorted in savage grins. Protect the artisans, Captain Yumi yelled, already engaging 2 of the bandits, her movements a deadly dance. Kenzo created a handful of shadow clones, sending them forward to intercept the attackers. Ren blurred into action, his taijutsu swift and precise, felling one bandit with a series of rapid strikes. Aiko, using the terrain to her advantage, laid down subtle traps of vines and guided the artisans to a more defensible position. The bandits were more numerous and skilled than anticipated. One particularly large axe-wielding bandit, clearly their leader, broke through Kenzo's clone line and charged straight for Ren. Ren met the charge, his kunai flashing, but the bandit was a brute, his wild swings powerful and difficult to parry. Ren focused on his intricate style, found himself being pushed back. his precise movements countered by sheer, overwhelming violence. The bandit leader feinted with his axe, then delivered a vicious kick to Ren's side, sending him sprawling. Before Ren could recover, the bandit raised his axe for a finishing blow. "Ren!" Aiko screamed. Time seemed to slow down for Kenzo. He saw the glint of the descending axe, the look of shock and pain on Ren's face. His rival, the one who always seemed so untouchable, was about to die. A primal roar built in Kenzo's chest. It wasn't a conscious thought, not a jutsu he learned. It was pure, unadulterated instinct, the desperate need to protect his friend. He felt a surge of raw, untamed power, far more potent than his usual chakra. It felt wild, like the forest itself, like the stories he'd heard of the great forest bear spirit. The very spirit Hiroshi had once feared he himself embodied. His vision tinged red at the edges. "Get away from him!" Kenzo bellowed, his voice deeper, rougher than usual. He charged, not with his usual clumsy enthusiasm, but with a terrifying, focused ferocity. He didn't even think he made clones. He moved faster than he ever had before, a blur of orange and black. He slammed into the bandit leader with the force of a battering ram, knocking the surprised man off balance, the axe flying from his grip. Kenzo didn't stop. He rained blows on the bandit, not with practiced taijutsu, but with raw, powerful, and fast strikes, each one imbued with that strange, ferocious energy. The bandit, dazed and overwhelmed, stumbled back, fear replacing the savagery in his eyes. Kenzo stood over the fallen bandit, his chest heaving as the red haze slowly receded from his vision. He felt different, stronger but strangely calm. He looked at Ren, who was staring at him, wide-eyed and speechless from the ground. The remaining bandits, seeing their leader defeated so decisively and witnessing the raw power Kenzo had unleashed, lost their nerve. With Captain Yumi and Aiko pressing this advantage, they broke ranks and fled into the woods. In the aftermath, as they tended to minor wounds and secured the artisans, an awkward silence hung between Kenzo and Ren. Finally, Ren, wincing as he sat up, finally spoke. You saved me." It was barely a whisper. Kenzo shrugged, still feeling the unfamiliar thrum of power fading within him. "Yeah, well, can't have my rival getting himself killed. Who would I beat then?" He tried for a grin, but he felt a little shaky. Later that evening, as they made camp, Captain Yumi sat with Kenzo by the fire. "That power you displayed, Kenzo," she said quietly. "It was remarkable and dangerous, like an echo of the old spirits of the forest." Kenzo looked at his hands. I don't know what it was, Sensei. I had to protect Ren." Yumi nodded. "Many believe ninjas are just tools, weapons to be wielded. But we are far more than that. We have will, we have loyalty, we have the capacity to care. What you did today, Kenzo, it wasn't just about power. It was about protecting your comrade. That is the beginning, the start of your ninja way, your true nindo." Kenzo thought about that. He had always wanted to be strong, to be acknowledged, but today the strength had come from a different place, a desire to shield someone else. He had acted not for glory, but for a teammate, even if that teammate was Ren. He looked at Ren, who was silently watching the flames, and then at Aiko, who offered him a warm smile. "To protect my comrades, my village, to use my strength to shield others." A new resolve solidified within him. He still wanted to be strong, stronger than anyone, but now he knew why. The path ahead was still long and uncertain, filled with more daring missions, more bickering with Ren, and undoubtedly more dangers. But Kenzo felt a change within himself. He was no longer just a troublemaker, a prankster. He was Kenzo Uzumaki, Genin of Team 7, and he was starting to understand what it truly meant to be a ninja. Wow, absolute cinema. If you guys enjoyed this story, make sure to comment down below your thoughts. I thought this was a pretty interesting exercise. I don't think the Land of Rivers arc is quite the hit that the Land of Waves was, but that Ren scene was still pretty good. What do you guys think? It was definitely something. So if you guys have any ideas or you want me to continue Kenzo, let me know. This was pretty interesting. I liked that it had some original concepts and it changed up characters a bit. It also uses stuff from like the original Naruto, and I never told it to use Naruto. So I guess the story from my description was similar enough that it's pulling names from those searches, which is pretty interesting to see like how that neural network is considering the summary of the story I'm giving it. But yeah, if you guys liked this, make sure to slap all those cool buttons down there, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Ciao!